Tales of the Sacred Sword. In this week's tale, you find if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Episode 39. Don't take your sword to the city. Bo hammered the final nail. With a couple shoves back and forth, he decided the fence post was sturdy enough to hold. Bo's father had been better at these things, but he had taught Bo all that Bo knew, and that was enough. It had to be. Winters were hard this far north. Bo was just happy to be outside. For the first time in months, it was warm enough to withstand the weather for more than the length of a song. He let out a breath he was holding and watched the cold turn it into fog. Through the window, his mother darned Bo's wool socks. It was good that her hands were busy. She always said idle hands were the tools of Mendax. She had a lot of sayings. Bo just knew when she was working, she wasn't thinking about Bo's father. Above her, the roof of their house looked as fresh as the day it was made. Or so Bo assumed. He wasn't born yet when his mother and father built their home on the very land they lived on. Bo had spent the better part of a day rethatching the roof. With his hands on his hips and a twinkle of pride in his eye, Bo admired his work. His father would be proud. As the sun set behind the tree line, Bo retired to his home. His mother waited by an oil lamp. His father's wedding ring, and a paper with some words scrawled that Bo couldn't read at this distance, cradled in his mother's hands. She had something important to say.
"You did good work today,"
said Bo's mother. "Thank you, Mother."
"The cold should stay for a few days."
Bo's mother stared out the window as she spoke. She was either lost in thought or couldn't look at Bo as she spoke. "It's been a hard winter."
"This is the letter of your father's birth and his wedding ring. In the morning, I'm going to town. The holy man should know that the winter fever killed him. Tomorrow is Seventh Day service. The town should know."
Bo grimaced at his mother's words. He didn't like to hear her speak of his father's death. His mother looked weary and weak. The winter had taken everything out of her. She had aged 10 winters instead of 1. "Let me go in your stead, Mother."
"You're too young."
"I'm a hand taller than I was last winter."
"You're too young."
"You said yourself I did good work today."
"You're too young."
"I'm the man of the house now. Father told me."
"Fine. Just promise me one thing."
"Anything."
"Don't take your sword to the city, son. Leave your sword at home, Bo. Don't take your sword to the city."
The next morning, Bo bundled up like a mountain man. Woolen down from head to toe. Hat, scarf, coat, overalls, and boots. He looked like a little bear walking on 2 legs. His mother kissed him on the cheek and gave him her parting words.
"Don't take your sword to the city, son. Leave your sword at home, Bo. Don't take your sword to the city."
"Don't worry about me, Mama. Your Bo's a man now." Cool air greeted him on his journey. but he was near sweating underneath his many layers of clothes. His father's ring and letter nestled in the inside pocket of his overalls, and his father's sword hung at his side. The journey to town took as long as the sun took to rise and reach overhead. It was long and lonely. The cold and isolation didn't bother Bo, but the anticipation of seeing the city made the seconds pass like eons. Bo had heard so many stories. The town was unlike anything Bo could have imagined. A street ran through it, and buildings lined both sides. They were so close together, they nearly touched. Strangers were everywhere, more than he could count on his fingers and toes. Many more. They walked about with purpose and pace. A man walked past him and bumped his shoulder. Bo chalked it up to an accident. No one bothered to say hello to Bo, or even acknowledged his presence. Another man bumped into Bo's shoulder. This time, Bo clasped the handle of his sword in anger. His mother's words echoed in his head.
Don't take your sword to the city, son. Leave your sword at home, Bo. Don't take your sword to the city.
Frustrated, Bo looked for the holy building. His mother had told him it would be shaped like a large circle. Bo spotted it at the far end of the street. Feeling overwhelmed at the commotion, he walked into the first building he saw. The open room of the town's inn was larger than Bo could have imagined a room could be. At least a dozen empty tables cluttered the room. Of course it was empty. Most good people in town were at the holy service in the circle building at the edge of town. A counter divided the common room from the kitchen. Behind it, an old man served a drink to the only patron who sat on a stool on the other side of the counter. Bo pulled up a stool next to him and cleared his throat. I'd like a drink of some of that stuff in the clear bottle, sir. Bo's voice trembled as he spoke to the innkeeper. The stranger beside Bo smiled, then sipped his own drink. He reminded Bo of a more shady version of his father. The innkeeper poured the drink and slid the glass to Bo. With a shaky hand, Bo clasped the glass and brought it to his mouth. He downed it in one gulp. Bo's eyes burned red and tears slid down his face. He shook his body to normalize himself. He had traveled from the farm to town to honor his father and aid his mother. This was his first strong drink. He was a man now. The stranger beside Bo also had tears running down his face. He slapped his knee several times before pointing his finger at Bo to mock him. Filled with rage, Bo reached for his sword in a flash, but the stranger drew his sword and slashed. Hollering and commotion burst from the inn, drawing a crowd from the outside. But they were not Bo's sounds or movements. Laying on the ground and unable to move, Bo let out his final words as the crowd wondered at their meaning. Don't take your sword to the city, son. Leave your sword at home, Bo. Don't take your sword to the city. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I write and record these tales weekly. If you enjoy them, please click the like and subscribe buttons, along with the bell notification, and leave a comment. Thank you.